the forgotten empire that ruled Africa for 1,000 years and fought off Europe. In the heart of West Africa, long before colonial boots touched the soil, there thrived an empire so vast, so powerful, that it shaped the destiny of a continent. For over 1,000 years, it resisted conquest, created immense wealth, and developed a system of governance that rivaled Europe. Yet today, most have never heard its name. This is the story of the Kanem-Bornu Empire, the forgotten Africa. Superpower that ruled from the shadows of the Sahara and defied European domination for centuries. What secrets did it hold? And why has history buried its legacy? The story begins in the 9th century CE, in the region surrounding Lake Chad, present-day Chad, Nigeria, Niger, and Cameroon. The people of Kanem, descendants of the nomadic Tebu, and later the Zagawa, developed an advanced political and military system. Oral traditions and Islamic chroniclers speak of Dugawa, the first royal dynasty, and their deep spiritual culture. The Kanem Empire was rooted in African traditions but later fused Islamic governance under the Sayfawa dynasty. By the 11th century, Kanem had become an Islamic empire ruled by my king, Dunama Dabalimi, a fierce warrior and reformer. He expanded territory through diplomacy and warfare, conquering up to 1,000 tribes. The empire controlled trans-Saharan trade routes, linking Africa to North Africa and the Middle East. Gold, ivory, slaves, salt, and textiles made Kanem extremely wealthy. It minted currency, wrote in Arabic, and developed a bureaucracy centered in Njimi, its thriving capital. The Sayfawa dynasty led military campaigns that rivaled European crusades. Unlike many African kingdoms, Kanem-Bornu had a standing army, heavily armored cavalry, and war elephants. Its rulers weren't just kings. They were strategic commanders and spiritual leaders. Kanem expanded east and west, incorporating many ethnicities into its empire, even when internal revolts or droughts threatened it. The empire evolved and moved its base to Bornu, present-day northeastern Nigeria. Unlike other African states that fell quickly under European firepower, Kanem-Bornu had already faced multiple invasions. They negotiated, resisted, and even defeated Arab, Ottoman, and later European slave traders and explorers. When the Fulani Jihad of Usman Dan Fodio rose in the 19th century, Bornu held its ground for decades. The empire formed alliances with the Ottoman Empire and was respected by the British and French, who feared direct confrontation. Its decline wasn't immediate. It eroded slowly through indirect colonial policies and internal strife. By the late 1800s, the empire's structure was weakened. The final blow came from colonial borders and administrative takeovers by the British and Germans. The last mine, Bukar Kara, died in 1893, shortly before the empire fell to colonial occupation. However, Kanem-Bornu left behind a deeply rooted Islamic scholarly tradition, trade networks, and governance models. Today, the legacy of the Kanem-Bornu Empire lives on in Borno State, Nigeria, where many still trace lineage to the old empire. The title Shehu of Borno is still used today, a royal descendant of the old empire. Their ancient libraries, architecture, and oral traditions are being rediscovered by African historians and archaeologists. The empire's resilience and power challenge the stereotype of a weak, pre-colonial Africa. This is African history, not as a tale of victimhood, but one of sovereignty, pride, and power. The Kanem-Bornu Empire stood the test of a millennium. It wasn't perfect, but it was powerful, organized, and wise enough to resist the grasp of empires far beyond its borders. So why don't we learn about it in school? Because history has often been written by those who erased what they could not conquer. It's time to restore that story, one empire at a time. Subscribe to Historical Lens and Conquerors as we revive the stories they tried to bury.